Welcome to Watch and Learn. We are so excited to share with you a new project today involving felting. I'm Kristina Whitney, a studio educator here at Handi Quilter, and with me is...
I'm Kim Sandberg, a studio educator at Handi Quilter.
So Kim has started a new project.
Yep.
It's really fun, and it's going to involve felting.
Yes, I am excited to do this.
Yeah, well, let's just jump right into it. Tell us about this.
So this is a project that I actually saw in a booth at the Daytona AQS show last year in February. And I fell in love with it. The booth was right behind ours, the Handi Quilter one that was there, and it was Calico Patch Designs. And you and I, we kept eyeing all the beautiful, gorgeous wools that they had in there, the patterns, and we went in and talked with, it's Vicki McCarty, and said, we absolutely love this pattern, and she happened to have a kit for it, and so we purchased it, and she's given us permission to film with us. We're really excited about that. But just so everybody knows, so you can find the pattern in the November 2021 issue of American Quilter magazine. And we'll be sure and have these details available for you. But I am using a kit that she provided, so it pretty much matches exactly what's in the picture. Of course, if you were making this on your own, you know, you could choose whatever you wanted, but it was nice for me because I don't have, especially wool, a whole bunch of wool on hand. But I really wanted to challenge myself here at the beginning of 2023 to try making a quilt with a new technique. And although I've done little tiny projects with the felting, I haven't actually done an entire quilt. So I just wanted to show you all kind of the beginning process here. So what I did was I went ahead and stitched together the, I guess you could say, the base of the quilt. It was super simple. It was some flying geese blocks around the edges with just some cornerstones here.
It's like the background piece?
Yep.
Okay.
And then just a big square of black flannel. Like I think the entire thing took me like 40 minutes to put together, and that included cutting everything. So that was ready to go. Then I had to prepare all of my wool pieces. And in the pattern, there's a page that has all the pieces on it. I traced them onto freezer paper, and then I pressed them onto the wool, just like this.
So I'm assuming this was a little bit more time consuming than piecing the background.
Yes. It's actually, it's been like the perfect project to work on in the office when I'm on a team call or like a Zoom meeting. I can sit there with my hands down low enough that nobody can see what I'm doing.
Giving away all our secrets.
I was gonna say, now everybody in the company is gonna know what we're doing during meetings. But I'm able to sit there, and I just am using a nice, good, sharp pair of scissors, and I'm cutting out these cute little berries. Oh, which, by the way, I didn't even tell you the name of the pattern. So it's called Christmas Berries. There's a lot of berries on this quilt. It has a very fun holiday theme to it. So I cut out all of these, and then I am gluing them down on here. So when you want to felt, one of the tricks is stabilizing the piece before you felt it so that it stays in place. So there's a few different ways that you can do this. I have chosen to use, I really love this, it's called Glue Baste It. It's just a simple basting glue. Have you ever used anything like this, Kristina?
Very little.
Yeah.
Just usually when I steal it from you.
I know. But I love this stuff. I did applique quilt along a couple of years ago and discovered this product, and I absolutely love it. So it's really easy to use. You just make sure that you keep the cap on tightly so that it doesn't glue over. We actually had a minor some issues. So what I do is, just after I've cut the pieces off, I place them where I want them. I peel that freezer paper off, and then I only have to do just a few dots of glue to hold the piece in place. So I just kind of do that, and they're manipulatable for a little while after it. So you can see there, and let it sit flat for 10 minutes or so. I have found that, like, when I'm doing hand applique and I am going to be traveling with it, I want to set something up to travel. So on these ones, there really isn't a right or a wrong side on these pieces because it's just felted wool. So, I mean, honestly, it really doesn't matter on these ones. Of course, if you're using a wool that does have one specific side or the other, you can be a little more picky with it, but I'm just gonna put that there. I have learned a little bit of a trick, especially when you start felting everything. If you have places where it's overlapping just a little bit, like right there, I will do just an extra little dot of glue to kind of stabilize the two pieces there together. But when you start felting, you really don't need a lot of adhesion between these two because that's what you're doing is adding that to it.
Okay, so let's go way, way back.
Okay.
What is felting?
Well, I'm going to show you that in a second. We'll get to that in a minute when we get to the machine. Okay. I'll explain what felting is when we get to it. It's essentially pushing the wool fibers into the base fibers.
Okay.
So in its simplest form,
together.
adhere them together. But the first, like I mentioned, the first thing you want to do before you're going to felt on the on one of our Longarm machines is you want to just have all of your pieces held in place. And so I like I mentioned, I like to use this basting glue. It's really great. I know that some people like to use like Steam-A-Seam or I'm trying to think what some of the other
Wonder Under,
things like that. You can absolutely use those, but just know that when you start felting, because you are punching those barbed needles down into it, sometimes it gums them up a little bit. So that's why I don't like to use that kind of a product when I'm going to be felting it. If I was hand stitching all of this down, I might actually use a little bit of that just because it's maybe a little bit more stable. But I have found that this glue based, it's fantastic. I use it on hand applique stuff that I travel with all the time that gets folded up and open and shut, and the pieces really stay stuck on. And when you're done with a project, you can soak it in a little bit of water and this stuff disappears. Caveat, I would be really careful doing that with wool, but it works really well. So as you can see, I've still got a few pieces here. All the pieces that have paper on them are ones that still need to be glued down. I didn't have quite enough time during that last Zoom meeting yesterday to get it all finished. But once I get that done, then I am ready to go to the machine and start felting. So let's go ahead and we'll head over to the stationary machine we have set up. That's the one I'm going to be using today because that's the one we had the felting foot installed on. And we'll walk through the basics of how to do the felting on this.
So we're back at our Sweet 16 stationary machine with Kim ready to show us some of that felting.
Yeah. So first of all, let's talk for a minute about the foot I'm going to use for this. So this is the Handi Felting Foot Kit, and it comes with everything you need to make your machine be able to do this. Now just a note, this is available to use on every Handi Quilter machine except for the Infinity. It has to do with the placement of the thread cutter. That's why it is not compatible with the Infinity. First of all, there's a new needle plate. So you change your needle plate out. Here's the head that holds the needles. There's a new foot. It comes with 3 different sizes of needles, felting needles, and then it also comes with the right kind of hex wrench so that you can easily make the change with it. So we have a really great video that walks through on how to install this, and that's included in the instructions with the felting foot kit. So if you have questions about that, I recommend you watch that video. We have the felting foot installed here, and you can see that we've got this little cam here at the top, and it's holding the needles. We've got this other foot on. Kind of looks like the glide foot, doesn't it, Kristina?
A little bit, yeah.
Yep. And really what that is it just helps hold the fabric down in the right place and protects so that you're not getting your fingers in there anywhere. Now, there's one thing that is very different, and this is the only time we do this with these machines. If you look at the whole machine here, I'm missing a super important component that we always talk about.
Yes.
There's no thread. There is no thread.
Yep.
Why is there no thread, Kristina?
Because you're not stitching thread on. You're just puncturing fibers through the layers.
Exactly. So these needles have little barbs on the side of them, and what they do is they press the fibers from the wool down into the base layer cloth, and it actually combines the two together. So let me show you how that works. And I've got the machine set up here.
You've got several needles in there.
Yes, I've actually got, is there 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. I have the highest number of needles in there. And so depending on how thick the wool is that you're putting in there, how dense it is, how much it's actually been felted will depend on how many needles you have. I may make an adjustment with that when I get to my actual project, but for right now, I just want to show you guys how this works. So I just turn my machine on, and then I just very gently, and the thing that you have to remind yourself about this, if you hit a point and you need to stop, you can completely readjust your fabric because there's no thread. So I'm gonna do just a little bit more here in the center, and then I'll flip this over and show everybody. So that has now been felted in place. It is adhered to the fabric. And if I look on the back, just right here, you can actually see some of those wool fibers have been pushed through to the back side. And I can do just a little bit more to really kind of tack that in place. Now, once you've felted something, you have the choice. You can quilt over the top of it if you want to. You could even do some decorative hand stitching if you wanted to, or you could just leave it like this. It's not going anywhere. It's going to stay there. Yep. So I really recommend before you start on a project, and it's part of the reason why I have this set up the way I do, is practice felting a little bit with the actual felted wool that you're using onto your background fabric, your base fabric, so that you can make sure that you're not going to be doing too much felting. The different needles we have in here are different sizes. Some of them are finer than others, so you may need to play with those a little bit. And you may only want to use 1 or 2 needles also. You don't necessarily have to use all of them. So
I found that with small pieces, I have a lot better success if I start at the center of that piece and work my way out.
Yes.
Going straight across, a lot of times it will try to pull up that top layer and can kind of give you some grief.
I 100% agree with that. So you can see I've got that felted now pretty well in place. It's a nice circle. Just like Kristina was saying, I do recommend while you're felting, working in like a circular motion, unless if you've got a really straight something that you're working on, but you want to be kind of careful with that. If I felted this much more, you might actually start to see some separation in these wool fibers up there. So that's as much as I'm going to felt it for right now.
So it is possible to overfelt.
Yes, it actually is. It actually is. I could do a little bit here. Should we show them what overfelting could potentially look like?
Let's see what it looks like.
Okay. So I'll do a little piece over here, and we'll just do some real overfelting. And by the way, I have this machine set on a very low manual. Oh no, actually, sorry, it's a very low cruise speed. And so I feel like when I'm doing this, it gives me just a little bit more control if I work at a slower speed. Okay, let's come back to the center here, and I'll see if I can get some overfelting rolling here.
Because I have definitely overfelted.
I have definitely overfelted too. And I know that was one of the things that I really figured out. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna get some overfelting here. That I really figured out, especially along the edges of the piece of fabric, the wool, it's really easy to overfelt it. Okay, so if you look here, there's actually the pieces of the felt on the top are actually breaking down and kind of shredding out just a little bit. That means that I've overfelted that. If you compare that to the one that I did here, that I just lightly felted it, it's not distorted at all, it's maintained its shape, whereas this one has gotten a little bit wonky because I overfelted it. So you just wanna be careful with that. Sometimes you feel like you start doing this and it's so much fun and you just wanna do more, but more is not always better when you're felting. So
yeah, I think my thing was, I want to make sure it's going to stay and not come back off.
Yep.
So yeah, I felted it to death.
Exactly. Here's another indication that you have overfelted it. Look at how much of that fiber got pushed through to the back. If you compare that to what I did over here on my better sample, the one that this is how much I'm going to felt it. You can see that this just has kind of a faint outline of the piece, whereas this, I've actually put so much on the back right there that this could almost be a reversible project at this point.
I've heard of people doing those reversible ones where they push as much through as they possibly can,
Exactly.
and then it shows up on the back side.
The back side. But that is definitely not what I'm going with here, going for here. One other note, you'll notice that I'm doing this without any batting or backing on it. I'm just doing it on the quilt top. And I'm choosing to do it this way on this particular project. Just like you mentioned, if you do want to have some kind of a double-sided project, you may want to go ahead and do those extra layers. You can do that. But remember, you're also going to be pushing batting out the back and potentially fibers from your quilt top underneath. So you want to be very thoughtful about what you're going to do.
Yep.
So I am going to now, I'm going to spend some time getting all of this felted, and we'll show you what the finished results looks like here in just a few minutes on film.
Thank you for joining us. Kim has been working so hard on this project, and it's fabulous. And we want you to join us as we have Kim continue through this project and see all of the fun progress that she's making.
Yeah.
So make sure that you like and subscribe and have fun quilting.